4 foreigners killed in a plane crash off of Grand Bahama. Police reporting a downward trend in armed robberies. The VAT and constitutional referendum education campaigns will run simultaneously. The government says no need for concern. The Ministry of Works yet to begin demolition of shanty towns and prepare for the temperature to get a whole lot cooler. I'm Nikia DeVoe, and this is NB12 Weekend. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Cable 12 Studios. Here are the stories coming out of the NB12 newsroom this weekend. First up tonight, 2 men and 2 women today died in waters miles off Grand Bahama as the plane they were in crashed into the ocean after leaving the island. Police are still trying to determine what caused the single-engine Cirrus 22 aircraft to crash just off Grand Bahama this morning, killing the 4 souls. According to police on the island, the crash happened shortly after 11 a.m. in the Queens Cove area, about 5 miles off the coast. Police say the aircraft was completely destroyed. NB12 obtained these images from the scene as officers of the Police Force Marine Section and Bahamas Air and Sea Rescue scoured the waters looking for the bodies of the people on board. All we know at this time is that the victims were foreign visitors to the island, 2 men and 2 women, and were taking off from Grand Bahama International Airport when something went terribly wrong, causing them to go down in the chilly waters. We're told that the pilot's name is Anthony Wishart. The bodies were brought to shore and taken away from the scene. Also at the scene today were West End and Bimini Member of Parliament Obi Wilshcombe and Minister for Grand Bahama Dr. Michael Darville. What a tragic story. Be sure to pick up a copy of tomorrow's Nassau Guardian for full details on that incident. Well, also over in Grand Bahama, Drug Enforcement Unit officers making a major drug bust and arresting a 42-year-old man for drug and firearm possession. Police reportedly discovered 2 black duffel bags and suitcases containing multiple packages of suspected marijuana wrapped in brown, black, and clear plastic. Officers also say they discovered half a pound of suspected marijuana hidden in a freezer. Now, upon further search, officers discovered 1 9mm handgun and 29 rounds of 9mm ammunition. The suspect was arrested and taken into police custody. The drugs, firearm, and ammunition were all seized. The suspected marijuana is estimated to weigh 149.5 pounds and has a street value of $149,500. Well, police say just as there has been a slight tapering off in murders for the last quarter of the year, so has there been a decrease in the number of reported armed robberies and other major crimes. They are attributing this to beefed up patrols and police presence. Paige McCartney has the details.
Assistant Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson says this trend in fewer reported cases of major crimes like murders and armed robberies that has been evident for the past few months should continue as officers keep their boots to the ground.
Recently, we have been experiencing very low reports of armed robberies, and that is attributed to the saturation patrol by uniform and plain clothes. I think which is very good.
But despite the reduced numbers, armed robberies are still occurring regularly. On Friday, the United States Embassy released a warning to its citizens living in and visiting the Bahamas regarding robberies after 2 American tourists were held up. But Ferguson said the force is working hard to turn around as many cases as possible, as quickly as possible.
I'm encouraged by the number of case files that we send to court on a weekly basis for armed robberies. I think sometimes you don't focus so much on the amount of persons go for armed robberies before the court. It don't necessarily have to be a bank robbery or a robbery of a major establishment for it to make the news, but the fact that somebody produces a handgun and robs somebody of a car, whether you rob somebody of a handbag, that is armed robbery. So a number of those persons we have been putting before the court.
Ferguson said it's the focus on lesser crimes in addition to other efforts that has contributed to the decline. According to Ferguson, police have already taken in excess of 300 firearms off the streets so far this year, already approaching the mark set for the entire 2012.
We are confident as we continue our aggressive stop and search, aggressive intelligence-led. We are confident that we should surpass what we took off the streets for last year. I am extremely encouraged by the amount of assorted ammunitions that we have taken off the street so far. For this year, well over 6,000 different types of ammunitions. These things go hand in hand. So if you take the ammunitions off the street, it actually simply means that the firearms cannot be used without the ammunition. If you take the firearms off the street, then it really, you'll see the reduction in crimes, armed robberies, shooting, murders.
Police say they're hoping through their efforts that this notable decrease in armed robberies will continue throughout the holiday season. Ferguson said police have a strategy going into the remainder of the year to keep the number of armed robberies low.
The public will see us. Some of the officers, you would not know that they are there, but they are out there. And the criminals certainly will feel us. And that is the objective. And when the criminal is feeling us, then it simply means that they will backpedal, and then they would not be out there committing crimes.
Reporting for MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
And speaking of armed robberies, an act of bravery saved a man from becoming the latest victim. A group of unarmed citizens managed to restrain an armed robbery suspect in the College Gardens area last night. Residents of Zirconia Court ran to their neighbor's aid after he screamed for help during an attempted mugging. Police say the victim was at home when a gunman approached him around 8 p.m. and attempted to rob him of his cell phone at gunpoint. That's when he yelled for help and neighbors ran to his rescue, subduing the 20-year-old suspect and eventually handing him over to police along with the handgun and ammunition. The suspect was still in custody at last report. Well, on to another hot topic, value-added tax. The VAT and constitutional referendum campaigns will run simultaneously despite concerns that the information will be too much for Bahamians to process at one time. State Minister for Finance Michael Halkitis told NB12 that the government is confident in its ability to hold both campaigns and will move ahead with its plans.
Overall tax reform program, that's ongoing. I am not personally involved with the education program for the constitutional amendment, but I'm sure that when that begins, the chairman said that they will be moving from island to island, informing the Bahamian people on that. So they will be going on simultaneously. I believe the Bahamian people can deal with more than one issue at a time.
Halkitis' comments come amid criticism that the Christie administration may be biting off more than it can chew. Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis called on the government to hold off on the implementation of value-added tax. He said both campaigns should not coincide. Meantime, former PLP Cabinet Minister George Smith urged the government to hold off on the constitutional referendum and focus solely on the implementation of VAT. Prime Minister Perry Christie announced last month that the constitutional referendum, which was previously scheduled for June and then November of this year, will now take place before the end of June 2014. Smith said Bahamians are too preoccupied with issues surrounding the economy, high unemployment, and crime to take on a constitutional referendum and the implementation of VAT. Halkitis disagrees, and he said the government is determined to make the education process a smooth one.
The objective is to make sure we have sufficient revenue to run the government of the Bahamas. We're going to try to make it as fair as possible. We want to get that information out to the Bahamian people, how it's going to operate, how it's going to affect them. We need to make sure that there's buy-in and they understand exactly what it is that would be expected of them and what would be expected of the government. So our education would be accelerating. And so the issue of the two happening at the same time, there will be other issues as well, but I think it's going to be up to us to satisfy ourselves and get the feedback from the Bahamian people.
Officials from the Ministry of Finance have made several media appearances and have been making their rounds throughout various sectors of society in hopes of educating Bahamians on value-added tax, which is slated for June 2014. but there has been growing concern over the impact that VAT will have on the economy and local businesses. According to the Prime Minister, the government may consider delaying the 2014 implementation if it is not satisfied that the public is properly educated about the new regime. However, Halkidis says he believes a lot of the fares will be allayed once legislation is made public, but stressed that the implementation will not be delayed simply because people do not agree with the government.
We would like to have universal acceptance, but we know that we will never get universal agreement. Some people will disagree for philosophical reasons. They might say, okay, I want an income tax instead, or they might say, I don't want any taxes, I want a smaller government. Some people will disagree for political reasons. They will not agree because the fact of the matter is they don't support this administration. That will happen. So we believe that we will always have those voices out there of dissent.
Halkidis said the government will make sure that Bahamian people are ready for June 2014. Well, if you want to learn more about the upcoming value-added tax, you're in luck. The VAT Implementation Unit of the Ministry of Finance has announced several informational events and appearances on the VAT's implementation and VAT's business readiness as a part of the public education exercises. Starting tomorrow, November 11th, Ministry of Finance officials, along with those from the VAT Implementation Unit, will be presenting at the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants' annual Accountants Week seminar series that runs from Monday to Friday the 15th. For more information on that scheduled events for the week, contact the Value Added Tax Implementation Unit in the Ministry of Finance at 327-1530. Now, a VAT readiness seminar will be held at Workers' House on Tonic Williams-Darling Highway on Wednesday, November 13th. That will take place from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. All interested business persons are invited to attend. And this coming Thursday, November 14th, there will be a VAT Town Hall Forum at Workers' House on Tonic Williams-Darling Highway from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Ministry of Finance officials will discuss the need for tax reform, why VAT, and how VAT works. They're encouraging members of the public to attend that very important forum.